What's up, guys? Welcome to another Destiny gameplay video. In this video I'm going to show you the Vex Mythoclast after the nerf and try to answer the question of whether or not it's good across PvE and PvP. Now, I use smart drift control on this and I'll show you why here in a second, but let's just look at the skill tree real quick here before we get into it. This has Zen Moment, which basically makes it so that when you cause damage, it increases the stability of the weapon. The second main ability is Crowd Control, so that when you get a kill, you do additional damage for the next short while. And I do mean a short while. It's only like 3 seconds. I use Enhanced Battery on this usually just so you get a lot more in the magazine. But here's why I use Smart Drift Control. Look at that ridiculous recoil. I mean, it kicks like a mule. It only takes like 10 shots to get all the way to the top of that building. So with the Smart Drift Control, it takes almost your entire magazine to get up to the top of the building, as you see here. So you're definitely going to want to have that stability upgrade. Otherwise, you will not hit crap with this gun. So yeah, I also made it, I'm a bit of a nerd, so I made my own PvP class based around this weapon. I call it the Kill It With Fire build. I use the Praetorian foil and a fire rocket launcher of any kind. So let's get right into some PvP here. Generally, in my videos, I try to address 3 questions when I'm talking about a weapon. The first of which is this: how does the weapon stack up against other weapons of its type? Now, that's a little bit tricky with the Vex Mythoclast, mainly because this weapon is technically a fusion rifle, though it doesn't play like one. I think in terms of how it plays, it's probably most comparable to an auto rifle, and so I'm going to address it as such. So, in terms of other auto rifles in the game, since that's kind of how this weapon plays, I'd say it's pretty middle of the pack. There are other auto rifles out there that are more stable, that are more accurate, but I will say that the Vex Mythoclast, just because of the way that they nerfed it and some of the changes they made to it, it does pack a bigger punch in terms of precision damage. It does do extra precision damage, so that's kind of interesting. So I would say aim for the head, although aiming with this weapon is a little bit of a tricky thing just because it is pretty unstable, even with the smart drift control on it. And you might be interested in using the Send It perk just to help increase that accuracy and the range of it. Now, this is my Kill It With Fire build. You'll see I'm using this fire rocket launcher. I do use the Praetorian foil, which is the hard rate exclusive fusion rifle that does fire damage. And I'm using these weapons in conjunction with the Sunsinger class, which is all about killing things with fire. So this is my Kill It With Fire build. I'll show you some of the various weapons and ways that you use this build if you're interested. It's just a build that has a lot of character. It's not necessarily the most efficient PvP build, but it's just kind of fun to use, which is why sometimes I roll with it. Now, the second question that people generally want to know the answer to when discussing weapons in Destiny is, how does it stack up in PvP? How does it stack up in the Crucible? I know a lot of you guys are Crucible junkies, you play a lot of PvP. So in terms of answering that question, I'd say that the Vex Mythoclast is an interesting weapon to use. It does have a lot of character, so it's fun to use, but in PvP, it's just a little bit weird. The stability is an issue. You do tend to get outgunned by other weapons, so I find that it works best in conjunction with other elements of your loadout. So a lot of times I'll use grenades to get shields down. I don't know if I'm just imagining it, but I do feel like the Vex does a good job of killing guys after their shields are already down. It's kind of a good mop-up weapon. Other than that, if you start with it, it's a good assist weapon. I do get tons of assists with the Vex Mythoclast, so much so that whenever that bounty comes up to get 50 assists in the Crucible, I always go to the Mythoclast just because you get so many assists with it. Other people tend to clean up your kills for you. But you'll see it's interesting. I do like using it in conjunction with other things just because I find that makes it a little bit more efficient. I use my Sunsinger sticky grenades just because I'm so used to the physics of those that I do enjoy using them and slinging them around, and it fits well with this build. But you'll see like that. I get a lot of assists with this weapon, and you probably will too. It's not a bad weapon to roll with in PvP, and honestly it does pretty well in the Iron Banner when you have it fully leveled up. But the Iron Banner is generally not around, you know, it just kind of comes around every now and then. So you'll see here at range, it's kind of pathetic, to be honest. At range, it fares best in those middle range sight lines. And that's kind of where this weapon shines the most. So here you'll see the Praetorian foil. I will say about the Praetorian foil, it's a good fusion rifle. It's really good in PvE. It's not necessarily the best in PvP. The charge rate on this thing is atrocious, downright atrocious. But once you level it up and you get the accelerated coils, that does help. And I feel like the cluster on it is a little bit tighter, so it's a little less forgiving when you use it. In close quarters, you really have to make sure that you are good at target acquisition. Otherwise, you might have a little bit of a hard time finishing guys off with one hit. So you see, I'm kind of using everything in my arsenal here. Use the grenades, use the fusion rifle, use the Mythoclast. I'm also, one of the ways you can be successful with this gun is making sure you're taking advantage of your vertical space, making yourself hard to get a beat on, because you are going to take a little bit longer, I think, to get your kills with the Mythoclast. But one thing that you can't overlook about the Mythoclast is that it does have character, it is unique, and it is, in a sense, if we're being honest, a bit of a status symbol. When you see guys running around with the Mythoclast, it does kind of put a target on your back because, and I did find this out, generally speaking, I get teabagged probably twice as often when I'm using the Mythoclast, just because guys have so much hate for it. Which is just kind of funny. It really isn't any better than any other standard legendary or exotic weapon out there. In fact, I think there are a lot of weapons that are better than it in PvP. But you will have a bit of a target on your back if you're using the Mythoclast in PvP. So yet another assist with this gun. So those are generally my feelings about this weapon in PvP, just based on my experiences with it. It's really not the most fantastic PvP weapon, although it isn't bad. It's a sort of a middle-of-the-pack weapon. I use it more for fun than I do for being competitive. And Iron Banner's up right now, and I've used it for a few matches. It's not bad in there, but it's certainly not as good as my standard loadout, so I'm just not really rolling with it very often in PvP when I'm trying to be competitive. It's more just for the kicks and the giggles. So I did have success using it, though. I think I can't attribute my success entirely to the Mythoclast, because you see I am getting a lot of kills with my grenades and with my fusion rifle. Like I said, it just works best in conjunction with other things. It's not bad. Like right there, I got a headshot kill. You'll see it's pretty good at precision damage. But you'll see I did have success. A couple of 27 kill games with a decent KD, and that's kind of where I was ending up with this weapon. So here I wanted to show you a little bit of PvE, because that's generally the third question that people want to know the answer to when evaluating a weapon in this game, is how does the weapon stack up in PvE? I know there are a lot of players that I've seen in the community and on the forums and on Reddit, they really don't give a hoot about PvP. And a lot of people were upset about the nerf on the Mythoclast and upset about the fact that it affected PvE, because there are a lot of PvE players out there who aren't playing PvP who felt like they were getting punished because of a PvP problem. Well, that being said, let me just say this. I feel like this weapon is pretty fantastic in PvE. And I wanted to show you some footage from a Tiger Strike here, just because I know a lot of PvE players are playing Tiger Strikes. Aim for the head, you are getting additional crit damage with the Mythoclast. And because of the fire damage, it really is pretty fantastic in PvE against things like Centurions that have fire shields. And Cabal in general, I feel like they fall pretty quickly to the Mythoclast, as well as do the Vex in general, just because of their easy crit spots, save Minotaurs. Minotaurs are kind of a different story with the Mythoclast. You're probably going to want to use a special weapon. But yeah, in general, I feel like the Mythoclast is pretty fantastic in PvE. The only problem that I could point to as being an issue with it is the fact that ammo can be kind of hard to come by for this weapon. It's easy to chew through your ammo, and then you kind of got to go on the hunt to find ammo. So I find personally that the best way to use this weapon in PvE is to be generally pretty close to your targets, because you're going to want to pick up ammo as you go. If you're hanging back, you're going to find yourself out of ammo and in need of making frequent ammo runs. So I find just stay down here near the fray, play smart, use cover to your advantage, use your vertical space, communicate with your teammates if you're playing with teammates. But you can have some pretty good success with this weapon in PvE. It is okay in the raid, I'll tell you that. I wouldn't suggest using it in the raid, just because there are other raid weapons that do a lot better, and the mobs in the raid are huge, so having little ammo is gonna be an issue in the raid. It can hold its own, but I would highly suggest using something like a maxed out Kratos timepiece in the raid. I think that's the best raid primary out there. Epilogue is pretty good in the raid. A lot of people don't like it because of the stability, but personally I find that when you learn how to control the recoil and you max that weapon out, it's a fantastic raid weapon. You'll see the Vex here, because of the crit damage, drops these Colossuses pretty quick. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, guys. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope you know what to expect when you get the Mythoclast. Feel free to like and subscribe. I'll have more videos coming your way soon. Thanks, guys.